Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me all right? Hi. For those that don't know me, I'm Hope Weiss. I'm the Director of HR at Spring Grove. Welcome and thank you all for being here. You guys all know Dr. David Renaud, and Chris Sank, our Technology Coordinator, is here as well tonight. In a minute, I will introduce and turn the floor over to Dr. Edward Albert, our consultant, but I just wanted to go over a few things before we get started. So I'm going to read off the list of individuals that opted to make comments tonight, and then at the end, if anybody else has anything else, we'll allow them to speak. Time is going to be limited for your comments to 5 minutes. And I would ask that your comments speak on the superintendent search process or what you would like to see in a superintendent. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Albert.
Good evening. First of all, before I get started, I'd just like to thank you for your interest. I applaud you for doing that. I think sometimes when we run a school system, and being a former superintendent, I always cherished and appreciated people who came out because then they got to see the entire movie. Sometimes people come out and they're coming out in the middle of the movie and they're missing things that took place before time. So the fact that you're here tonight, we're fairly new into the beginning of this movie, if I can use that analogy. And I think it's important that you hear everything. So we have a couple ways we can go about this. We can start off, if you wish, that if you want to ask questions, or I can kind of give you kind of an overview of what the search is going to be. So how many people would like kind of the overview? Okay, all right. So I had a lot of pre-meetings, and the pre-meetings were extremely important. It was with some board members, and it was with some great staff that you have up here, in addition to Susan, and also your PR person as well. And the purpose of those meetings was to really set the groundwork to make sure that, okay, is this the application we're going to use? What's the timeline? How long are we going to go? What does the survey look like? It also was very important because the process for this search is not new for me. But when I do a search, I always want to get out and meet people so people have an opportunity to talk with me, ask me questions, rather than just some guy who nobody knows who he is. So we established meeting times. And just to kind of bring you up to speed on that, I've had two buildings I've been in already. I was at the high school, and today I was at the middle school. Tonight I'm doing this. Next week, I'm going to be at the other schools, getting there early and staying late. And that has been going well. So as far as when I made my first presentation in this room about the search, you elect board members. That's just the process. That's the democratic way. You elect board members and they make decisions. But I really feel it's important, being a former superintendent and having my father as a board member for 30 years. I really think it's important that you have stakeholders to be able to give some input. You know, I'm going to go off here a little bit, but there's really basically an 80-20 rule in almost every school district across the United States. Does anybody know what the 80-20 rule is? 80% of the people in Spring Grove probably do not have a kid in the K-12 system at this time. 20% do. But yet everybody pays a tax, right? So everybody has some involvement in this. So I think if you're out here, whether you're the 20% or 80%, and by the way, sometimes you're a grandparent, and that doesn't count for the 20%, but you, at one time, maybe you had a child in the school. So why am I telling you this? I think this sweeps across all those lanes, if you will, that people are interested in the superintendent search. So we laid all that groundwork. In addition to that, each week I give a weekly report to the board. And I told the board, I know I have to get the microphone in my mouth. But a weekly report would be something like this, and there's no secret to this, but okay, this past week, we set up the application format, we post the positions, we have timelines, I send out the community survey. The deadline is November 20th. As of 2:30, the day that I did this weekly report, there were 93 people involved, or 93 surveys completed. I sent each board member a questionnaire where I reached and talked with each board member to get their responses to about 12 questions, and I put them together. And by the way, for the record, there's going to be a new board member coming on. I will be reaching out to her to get her input also. Also, I want to clearly state, she missed nothing. All she missed was a couple dates that we'd set up in good planning, the survey, the application, a checklist when I work with Hope, because if a person applies, we want to make sure they have everything in order, so that we didn't interview anybody. No candidates were brought to the board yet. None of that took place. That will be taking place. Let's go to the second week report. Well, the second week report is, and I don't mind sharing this with you. That's the same copy. Second week report comes out again to the board, because I want the board to know this, because I like, the board obviously bumps into people, and superintendents don't like surprises. Search consultants don't like surprises. And most importantly, board members don't like surprises. So in this one is, okay, I put the ad out on LinkedIn, and there were 301 impressions, and it reached 163 members. So this is going out as far as we can go. This is being advertised on PSBA, which about 85% of the people, 80 to 85% of the people who apply for jobs usually find it on PSBA. Let me give you an example. When I did the search in Upper Adams, and when I did the search in Bermudian, I will also tell you that we had people apply from Chicago. We have people who applied from Upper Adams. We had a person who was going to probably be down to the finals, and she was from Wisconsin. And by the way, she ended up getting a job in the Manheim Township School District over in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So the word gets out. I also put it on the PARS website. And then through my affiliations, like tomorrow I leave for Charleroi, which is in the western part of the state. I'm going to be in Charleroi because they're a blue ribbon school. Friday, I'm going to be in another school district out there. Saturday morning, I'm doing a board retreat at North. So wherever I go in my position as the executive director, I'm always promoting and trying to get candidates to apply at Spring Grove. And then in my weekly report last week, so I'll give you something that's fresh. As of last Friday, application inquiries, listen to this, application inquiries were a total of 4. That means 4 people reached out to me to talk to me about the job. I send out 3 applications. So 4 people inquired about the job, 3 people asked for applications. 1 person's still thinking about it. Completed applications, I have 1 on hand. So that's where we are. Now I can bring that up to date, and I'm probably letting the cat out of the bag, but I believe in transparency. Today I got 3 emails from 3 different people who want to talk to me about this position. So now we can say that. So those are raw numbers. Those are numbers that I didn't give anybody's name. I didn't give anybody's position. I could even say that maybe 2 of them are sitting superintendents. 1 person's an elementary principal. 1 person's this. I give no names. So as we go through that process, the board's kept apprised of what's going on. In addition to that, I'm always keeping Dr. Renault involved, Mrs. Wise involved, and Mrs. Sterner. They're communicated with too, so they know what's going on. Applications go up until November 30th. Once I get all the applications, and here's what people have to do when they apply. I don't believe in killing a lot of trees. So when somebody applies, they have to complete the application. In the application, there's a question about what are you really strong at, and you have to write an essay at that. There's different options. Also, you can send in your resume, your cover letter, and then part of the application is you have to give me 5 letters of reference. Now let's talk about those 5 letters of reference. I guarantee you, you can take this to the bank. Nobody ever applies for the job and says to a friend, can you write me a bad letter of recommendation? It just doesn't happen. All right. So if that person would advance far enough down the road, and let's just say the person's name is Frank Sinatra. All right. And Frank Sinatra moves down the road and he gets near the end. Not only am I going to look at the 5 applications for Frank, but then I'm going to start making contacts at different places. I'll give you an example. The person who got the superintendent at Upper Adams, he had 5 letters of reference. I reached out to an additional 10 people, intermediate unit directors, this, so on and so forth, because I really want to get, and I write down the time, exactly what they say, because I feel I need to present that to the board. So when the applications are done, they come and I will be dropping them off and giving them to board members. Once again, board members, this is part of their role as a board, but in addition to that, I will have board members sign in a confidentiality document saying, you're taking this binder home with you. It's a 3-ring binder. It'll be in a sequential order. It'll be cover letter, resume, application, essay, 5 letters. Do I need the criminal check, transcripts, and all those type of things, and certification a little bit later on? Yes. But we're only going to get that from the person. If I call the person up and saying you're getting an interview, they have been alerted in advance. You need to come with that stuff. All right. The night that I sit down with the board here, and I think it's December 15th, which is a Monday. I think that's the date, correct? December 15th on a Monday. That'll be an executive session because it's personnel. That's just how it is. That makes sense. If you were applying for a job, you wouldn't want the whole audience there saying, hey, and your employees over here at Rutgers, but you're applying at Wawa, but everybody at Rutgers know. There's got to be confidentiality to that. The board will have the applications a week in advance, so at their leisure, they can go through that with a fine-tooth comb. They will also have my phone number to call me at any time and say, hey, this person here, their resume shows like they have a 10-year gap. What's up? I have either talked to the applicant or I can say back to the board member, yeah, their parents were very ill during that time and they just had to bite the bullet and spend time with their family. And so we can answer so everybody knows what's going on. The night that they come here, which will be in this room, each candidate will also be sent a link to them. In addition to their application, a link, and the company that I use, I rent it. It's called SparkHire, SPARKHIRE. So the applicants will be asked 5 questions, cold questions, and they will be given 2 minutes to answer each question. So now that night of the 15th, the board's going to be sitting there. The board will have had the applications a week in advance. We sit there that night, we go over the applications, and let's go back to Frank Sinatra again. So Frank Sinatra applies, we go over his application, and then we say, here's Frank. And we watch Frank up on a screen, answering 5 questions that he or she did not have in advance. And they get to see another side of Frank. After we go through that whole process that night, it's night. And by the way, as the search consultant, some of my colleagues do this, do not do this. If I did this, my father would come back to haunt me. If Daffy Duck applies, and I know full well Daffy Duck doesn't have certification, I bring Daffy Duck to the board meeting. I don't play judge, God, or jury as to weeding people out and bringing people in. That's not my job. My job is to bring every candidate to the board member. Then when they go through that, there'll be discussion, give and take among the board, and then they'll be coming up with a list of interviews. And we picked for the new board member, I want this to get out there. For the new board member, all we did was come up with some tentative dates in January so we can start planning. As all of you know as adults, time goes fast. For Pete's sakes, on Valentine's Day this year, my mother turns 90. Folks, I'm planning a gathering for her already because February 14th will be here before you know it. So it would make sense for us who are here now to start putting those dates together. Again, new board member, missed nothing. One other thing that we have in there is a survey. I will be sitting down with the board and reviewing the survey, and each board member responded to a series of questions that I had asked them, and I have all their answers underneath each question. The night of December 2nd, which is a night of reorganization, the board will reorganize, and then I'm going to come in here, and that is, if I recall, that's a public meeting, because that's no longer a personnel issue, folks. That's a meeting where we're going to be sitting here and talking about what are the characteristics. And really what the board is looking for at that time is they're looking for characteristics of what they want in the next person. So that input was from my meetings in the different schools, perhaps bumping into somebody at Rutgers this morning, like I did, jotting that down, and also the survey. Now, what is done with that? And because sometimes some people came up to me and said, I didn't complete the survey. Why didn't you complete the survey? And the last time I completed the survey, and they didn't listen to me. Well, let's unpackage that a little bit. There's 9 board members. Let's say if they would listen to every person individually. You ever see one of those things out in front of a store at a grand opening and it's air blowing in and it's going like this and stuff like that? That's how the board would be. So what is my job as a search consultant with that survey? My job is when the board's going through, and again, the board decides, it is my job kind of be the prober a little bit. So for example, this is an example. I want to make that clear one more time. This is an example. Let's say that the board would be sitting there and saying, crazy example, man, I really like this guy. He's authoritarian. He looks like he's going to be a dictator. And you know, that they're kind of starting to put some eggs in this guy's basket or lady's basket. All right. I would probably sit there as a consultant, not probably, but more so, and saying, wait a minute, folks. You have a survey here. And the survey is saying, we want some characteristics of the following: integrity. I'm not saying you can't have integrity being a dictator, but integrity, character, building trust, getting to know people. So if somebody said to me today, 2 employees, the middle school came up to me today and said, what would you summarize what you're hearing so far? I'll summarize it right now for you. It is no doubt in my mind that Spring Grove is unique. It is a place that when there is a tragedy, you come together stronger than probably any other community I've ever seen. Kudos to you. I also am seeing and hearing in this district that when you get put in as a superintendent in this tight-knit community, you just don't get plopped in, and just because you're a superintendent, have a doctorate, you already fit in. You got to earn some trust. You got to communicate. You got to be able to walk up to Mike, who is the police officer in this school, and be able to shake his hand and say, how are you doing? And by the way, Mike, I'm sorry to hear about the tragedy that took place with your fellow officers. So what am I saying? I'm hearing that people are saying they want somebody who cares. I've heard a lot today, and I'm sorry, heard a lot of people today said, man, if we could have a duplicate of this man, that's what we love. And I know he's going to yell at me afterwards because I told him that earlier, but that's a compliment. That's a compliment. At the end of the day, my hope would be the following: that when we go through that process and the board gives and takes, that they put differences to the side, pick a good person, and begin to start to heal. I have my thumbprint on this too, just like I do in other districts. I want you to be successful because your success speaks volumes of my process. All right. If you're not successful, then if I was sitting on your side, I'd have to question the process a little bit. And I don't think you can go with another, you've been damaged a little bit. And by the way, that toothpaste is already out of the tube. So you're welcome to share things with me tonight, but I get the picture. I heard the story, and I'm not cutting you off, but we can't go back. We can only go forward. So that's the search process. I don't know if I missed anything. I don't think I do. I'm genuine. I'll give you an example. I'm flexible. Being a former special ed teacher, you have to be. The other day, there was a teacher that stood in here. She's in here tonight and said, "Hey, look, I think it's great that it's coming to the schools, but, we don't have time," which that was shared by me with a board member who's sitting in the room tonight about time. I respect that. So I just simply turned around and said, "You want me to be at Paradise or New Salem at 10 of 8? Fine." I've been working with Hope and she's been meeting me at all the schools. It's been great. And we both are saying to one another, "I'll meet you at this school today at 8 o'clock." She's texting me at 7:40 and I'm eating a sandwich at Rutter's. And I'll say, "I'll be up in a couple minutes." And I was here, I think, at 7:43. So most likely, if I'm going to be at the elementary schools and I say I'm going to be there at 10 of 8, most likely I'll probably be somewhere in that parking lot around 7:30, 7:40, barring anything with crazy traffic or anything like that. So folks, that's my spiel. I don't have a problem if you reach out to me. I don't have a problem if you have a question, but I'm here to do the best job possible. This is the only search I'm doing at this time. And I do that for a couple of reasons, because one, this is my Super Bowl. I want to do the best job possible for you. And I make it very clear to the board, I'm working for you. I'm not your boss. I'm working for you as a taxpayer and as a board. So at this time, I'll take any questions that you might have and I'll try to answer them for you.
So if I miss anybody, just let me know, raise your hand, holler. The first one that I have on here is Sarah Stark. Did I say that correctly? If you could come up and just identify your name and your municipality, that would be great. Thanks.
Did that? Okay, sorry. I'm Sarah Stark. I am in Jackson Township, and I just wanted to share what I want in a superintendent. Like many of us here, I have been part of Spring Grove for nearly 40 years, both as a student, an employee, and now as a parent. And when I think back to when Spring Grove has been great, it's when we have a superintendent that is invested in the community, where they're making the district great because their kids, their grandkids are part of the district. So I really hope that we can find somebody that is willing to become part of the community. Like it's not just a job. It's not something that we come in for. This is like you said before, like this is a family community, and our leadership should be willing to be part of that, invested in our community. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you. Hope's going to take notes, but I'm going to also recall it. So you basically said once again that this is a community and you want a person to be invested in the community, hopefully maybe even move to the community, even if they have their kids to go to the school district, because they're embedded into the community. And that's the Spring Grove way, as well as many other districts, but we're talking about Spring Grove right now. Okay. Somebody else. Okay, thanks. Okay, all right, thanks.
Melissa Sneeringer. Did I say your last name right, Melissa?
You're the one that said about getting there at 10 up. It's all right.
That's what I'm going to start with. Thank you for hearing that.
Yep.
I wasn't quite sure how it was received, but I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you did get more at the middle school today. I don't know if you
Just
did.
to let you know, I had about 12 people and there were 12 great conversations.
Good.
Yep.
Good, because I sent text messages to several of them.
Yeah, yeah. And let's just, if I may, I'm not stealing your time here, but
No.
because somebody doesn't stop by, that should not really upset some people, because you have a chance to do the survey. I'll tell you when I get I'm going to give you an example here. Some people stop by and I'll say, first question I ask is, did you do the survey? People say no, because they didn't listen the next time. I come back with this. I can't talk to you as a teacher. They'll say, why? I said, the last teacher I talked to, I didn't like. You get my point?
Mhm.
So I would urge people, I would strongly urge people to do the survey.
And that's what some of my colleagues said as I was talking with them since Monday, that they feel that the survey is a great opportunity for them to share their input. And if they were to come meet in person, it'd be redundant or they really don't have anything new to
That
say.
gate swings both ways.
So,
Yep.
right. So, but I just want everyone to have that mindset that just because you're not getting lots of bodies in this, or, you know what I mean? Like there's different ways that we can give our input when we appreciate that. So my question tonight, after listening to the whole presentation on Monday, is about the actual interview process. And I don't know if this is a question that can be asked or a question that needs to be considered, because I know each step of the way you have a basic plan, but based on conversation with the board and as you meet and talk to other people, things can be tweaked if that's the direction that the board wants to go. So my question is with number 6, the interview process. In looking at the bullets that are on the paper that we received tonight, it says discussion of all applicants, including input from optional stakeholder groups. So my question is, I know when it comes to actually doing interviews that there is very strict confidentiality, as you had mentioned before, for many different reasons. But will there be more people on the interview committee other than just the school board? Will other stakeholders be permitted to be a part of it?
I'm going to answer that question 2 ways. Okay. First of all, I didn't talk to the board about that yet, so we're not quite at that bridge. But I'm a firm believer, even though you're not crossing the bridge, you should be prepared for when you get to the bridge. The second thing is confidentiality really becomes a sticking point. Now, let me give you an example. So let's say you would have 6 teachers, just let's use teachers since you're a teacher, on the interview committee. And let's say you traipse everybody through, and it keeps coming down to 3 people like this person, 3 people like that person. Okay, I'm going to put it back onto you, because this has been a question that has been asked every time I do a search. All right. What should the board do? Because I guarantee you, I know human beings. If 3 teachers like person A and 3 people like person B, and they pick person A, 3 people from person B will not be happy. So I can tell you what I've done. And this is a decision for the board.
Mhm.
But I can tell you in all the searches that I have done, it's been primarily the board. Now, I did about 15 searches. So we could sit here and say, I don't like that. I could take the angle of saying 15 people did.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think you feel that way. If it was a traditional, let's take the history out of this. I don't think people would be asking that question as much, but because of the history, that's why the question's being posed.
Well, actually, the reason I'm asking the question is because I was part of the interview process when we hired an assistant several times ago. And it was a person or 2 from all the stakeholders groups. And I assume we took care of the confidentiality piece. Like, I don't know, because at that point, I was a newer teacher to the district. My son was in school, and I'm in a different season of life now. This is year 33 for me. And I've watched Spring Grove over the last 20 years do different processes each time. Not one is better than the other, but I'm just posing the question, is there any way? Because yes, they have the general public, they speak to people. Some of them have, as you said, Monday night, some of them have spouses in the district, so they get to hear some of the pieces from having an employee in their household. Some have children in the district so that they are also school board member and parent. That's awesome. But what about, just from those of us that are in the grind every single day? Yes, we have the survey, but we might see something positive or negative in a candidate that might go past the school board members. And if we can have someone from each pocket of the stakeholders, then then it is a full Spring Grove decision. Ultimately, ultimately the school board makes the vote, but we would feel more of a part of it if we could be involved in more of the steps prior to then the possibility. And I know, again, this is we don't know yet, the optional community night. And I know, again, that's, with all the confidentiality, but we did that when we hired George. We had 2 or 3 candidates that met in the high school auditorium, and we could come in, school district employees and community, and ask questions of them. When we hired Dr. Lombardo, there was stakeholders at that one. So each time it has been different. I'm just wondering, can we be a part of it?
To answer your question, one more time is I respect what you have to say, but that is a decision and a discussion that I need to have with the school board.
Yes,
And they'll make the decision, and I would hope at the end of the day that regardless of the decision, you would respect that. I'll
absolutely.
make one caveat into that. I hear you saying that you might see something in a superintendent that they don't. Please keep in mind, I was a superintendent. So I'm going to be those eyes for you, probably better than you are, because I know what I would want as a superintendent. So I just want to share that with you as well.
Yeah. And I believe in being proactive and sharing the thoughts. Like you guys didn't know that it would be helpful to change times by a half an hour.
Right.
Until someone mentioned it. So I'm just trying to plant a seed. I'm not saying it's the best choice.
I
I'm just
respect
saying,
what
please consider.
I respect
So
what
thank
you
you.
say and duly noted. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time. Yep.
Oh, it's the one.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak tonight, or did I miss anyone? Going once? Okay, thank you. That's all we have on the list to speak tonight. Would you like to say any other words,
Well,
Dr.
again,
Crawford?
folks, you know, I respect the last comment that was shared, and I greatly do. And the other night of you saying starting at 10 of, I think sometimes 2, 4, 6 eyes are better. I agree with that. And I think everything has a place and a process. I will tell you that anybody who applies for the job, I usually have about a 30 to 45-minute conversation with them. They will ask questions. I can tell you, you can take this to the bank. One of the questions that typically people ask is this, are there going to be other people involved in interviewing outside of the board? Now, keep in mind, let's just say you're a candidate from Redline, which that's where I first started my administrative career back in the 80s. That's nearby. Let's say it's Dallastown. That's nearby. I am a person in life that trusts everybody up front. The only way that trust can be broken is if you break it. That's how I roll. And sometimes you can get on a slippery slope of that. I'll give this example again. My mother is 89, she'll be 90. She worked in the high school cafeteria at Cedar Crest High School for 35 years. My father was a school board member for 30 years. I just had this discussion with my mother last night to make sure I was accurate with what I was saying. My dad would come home from an executive session and they're hiring somebody. My mom, who called my dad Albert all her life, Albert, who are you hiring? It was an executive session, Jerry, and I'm not telling you. Jerry would go to work the next day. Jerry would come home and say, yeah, Albert, my dad, oh, you're hiring John Doe. How the heck do you know? The custodian told me. So as much as I believe that people keep loose, tight lips, we're humans too. We're humans too. And you are really jeopardizing somebody's life. Let's go back to Dallastown or Redline. Let's say you had you had Dave here, all right, as a superintendent one time. But let's find out a man of integrity, a man who's honest, a man who knows people's families, a man who will stop and talk to you in a sincere way. All the characteristics that most people want in a superintendent. But now you heard him apply at another school district. And it's a small world. This young man sitting over here tonight graduated from Newport High School. I was the assistant superintendent at Elko. I was looking for a superintendent's job. Newport had an opening. I drove there on a Saturday to have breakfast in the area and to kind of get a lay of the land. Newport's along 322 up towards State College, right? I bumped into a guy on the campus and he said, can I help you? I said, sure. I said, I'm just trying to get a feel. Is this a high school and stuff like that? Yeah, he talks to me, so on and so forth. He introduces himself to me, fine. Get back in my car and go home. Now I'm at Elko, Eastern Lebanon County School District, which is near Myerstown, Pennsylvania. east of Lebanon. Monday morning, I'm sitting in my office, Doug Bohannon, the athletic director, comes in and says, hey, got to ask you a question. How's Newport? Close the door. What do you mean? Yeah, the AD. You bumped into the AD up there. It's a small world. It's a small world. So as much as I can respect what you're saying, it's a discussion that the board has to hire and has to take into consideration. And I always say this, you know, one of the reasons I became an administrator? Because I saw administrators in my lifetime that weren't effective, and I wanted to be one. And I think sometimes if you don't like a process, we're fortunate in the United States that if you don't like it, then you can run for an office and be part of that and try to make that change. But I greatly respect what you have to say. So I hope you respect that, folks. That's it.
I've never seen a microphone that I didn't want to speak into. So thanks for coming tonight. A couple of things that sort of jogged my thinking here tonight. Some of the decisions, and Missy, you brought up an excellent one that the board has not wrestled with yet, were purposely delayed until after the election, because as you know, the election, while we have one, as we all know, one person coming, it could have been more. And this board did not want to take that opportunity to have input into that process. So some of that has yet to happen after the reorganization meeting on December 2nd. So don't think some of those things haven't already been thought of, but please keep giving those kinds of questions and information. Secondly, if you want to see an update, Steph Kennedy does an awesome job. And on the website, she's putting on information as we get it from this gentleman over here. You may have seen on there, I think as recently as today, there's over 200 community surveys that have been returned online. She's going to try to keep that information. As Ed said, it's public information. And because the public should know that, we're going to stick that stuff on the website. Obviously, the board meetings, it's going to be multiple board meetings that things will come up, confidentiality, no, where processes and things like that will certainly need to be discussed somewhat in public. So the point is, if you want to continue to stay abreast of what's happening, go onto the website. Steph will be updating that about once a week-ish as time goes on. So you'll start to see, and already there's been things updated there. So just, and you, like I said, the board meetings will have information. Call any office here, my office, whatever, and we'll be happy to discuss where we are with the process as much as we can. Confidentiality is clearly one of those things that we must honor. And Ed's correct. Information gets out amazingly fast. And, you know, sometimes even with any issue, things get out very, very fast. So we have to be protective of those folks. Any questions for me on that process? If not, thank you. Go out and look at that moon. It is incredible. If you did not see it last night and tonight, it's unbelievable.